Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Good, thanks, Bede. And yourself?
Good, thanks.
What's the talk today on?
What we're going to do is, I just want to go where we left off last time. And we were saying that normally our condition that we're in, the actual condition of ourselves when living in this world, is that we're caught up and enclosed in our own world. We're self-confused. We're poured together with our thoughts, our feelings, our physiological reactions and actions. We're kind of like we're not only are we confused in terms of ourself, but this self-confusion is lived out faithfully. So it's a way of living in the world.
Yeah, so we've become our thoughts in one sense.
Yes, but yeah, that's true. But it's more like this. What I want to emphasize is that it's not like self-confusion is something that we have in us. We are living it. We are living out this self-confusion. So our way of living is this self-confusion taking the form as a way of life, a way of living.
Okay, and is it like we're thinking, but we're not aware if we're thinking. We're just experiencing according to a certain way of thinking. Is that?
Yeah. No, I don't want to go. No, I just want to know. I don't want to look at it from that point of view. What I'm trying to say is, let's say, for example, when you're being angry, it's not just something that happens in you. You are expressing it. You are living it out faithfully, aren't you? In terms of how you see, how you're responding with your emotions, your tone of voice, your very way of being in the world is that anger. So anger is a way of being in the world.
Okay, so you're distinguishing between being angry and an angry thought.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but what I'm stressing is that what Swami Dayananda means by subjectivity is not something that's just in your head. Subjectivity is living in your own world, and you're constantly living it out with yourself, other people in the world. You're caught in your own world.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay? And this world is characterized by the fact of, first of all, is that you're completely involved with yourself. Okay? You're not actually in contact with reality.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like...
So this is like where we've got, it seems to be describing that we're actively projecting our conclusions on the world or situations or people. And we're not aware that we're doing that, but we're living it out.
Yes. It's like when we're looking at a snake instead of a rope, because we see a snake, the snake is there. So when we're like that, we're not in contact with reality in terms of the rope, are we?
No, we're in our own world of projections.
But we feel that we're living in the world as it is.
Yes.
But it's not just simply I'm seeing a snake. That way of seeing is embodied in a way of being. I'm afraid, I'm obsessing about the snake. My breathing is... It's this way of seeing is a way of being. And so what I'm doing is I'm living in my own world. What Swami Dayananda says is that we're living in our own world. Another way he puts it is we're rooted in ourself. Okay?
Yeah.
Rather than being rooted in God. Okay? So we're living in our own world. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, because we're enclosed in our own world, we can't We can't get out of ourselves from ourselves.
No, because we don't have a doubt about what we're experiencing.
No. It's only when the presence of the rope is made evident, in other words, reality intrudes in on us in a sense, that reality kind of comes in and has become made evident, that we are freed from being in our own world. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, so Swami Dayananda talks about we're enclosed in subjectivity, and he says not even God can help us. In this condition, not even God can help us. Because you see, you know how I've said before that the appreciation of the presence of God is the transformative factor?
Yeah.
So when I come alive to facts, I'm now living in the world as it is. And this is what he calls living in Ishvara's world.
Yeah.
Now, and the thing is that there's two things about living in Ishvara's world, right? There's first of all shifting into being in a way of being which is in Ishvara's world, that comes from living in Ishvara's world, right?
Yeah.
And then maintaining our harmony with this world. Because he says it's not just simply awareness. He says if the whole purpose of life was just to be aware, he said that God would have made us without arms and legs and we'd just be this disembodied set of eyes looking at things.
Yeah.
Okay? So to live in this world, we not only have to live in the world as it is, we have to respond to it as it is. We have to respond. Okay? Which is a lot different than reaction.
I think you're suggesting we're mostly reacting.
We're mostly reacting, yes. Okay?
Yeah.
And so, but what's really interesting here is that when we look, the lifestyle that enables us to live in Ishvara's world, or in fact, the lifestyle that is living in Ishvara's world, is called Karma Yoga and a life of Dharma.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's Karma Yoga is not, you don't do Karma Yoga to get something. Okay? What he says is that Karma Yoga is an attitude. The living of your life from an attitude. Okay?
Yeah.
And you know how we've talked about, and I'm just going to go, so we have these two things, this discrimination between living in our own world and living in Ishvara's world.
Yeah.
Which is the same as the discrimination between being subjective and being objective.
Yeah.
Now, this is the most important discrimination as a person we can make in terms of ourselves as an individual living in the world. This is the most important thing because, you know, when I'm upset or angry with someone, I feel that at that moment, I'm not aware that I'm being subjective.
Yeah.
I actually feel that my anger is right. Do you know what I mean? That my view of the person is correct. Do you know what I mean?
Hurt you.
Sorry?
And your perception they've hurt you.
Yeah, that I've had the experience that they have done something to me to make me angry. Okay, so I'm caught up in my own world. Now, if I don't understand that every form of suffering that I suffer from is subjectivity, is being cut off from reality, right? I won't be able to recognize my suffering as subjectivity, will I?
No.
Okay, I'll think it's anger, and I've been annoyed.
Mm.
But I won't actually see the condition that I'm enclosed in, will I?
No, not at all.
No. So it's extremely important to be able to recognize that every form of unhappiness that I'm experiencing, and I'm not denying the experience, I'm often experiencing myself as unhappy.
Mm-hmm. Or as bored, or as...
Yep, doesn't matter. All the different forms of unhappiness. There's boredom, irritation, emptiness, loneliness, hostility, confusion. Doesn't matter.
They've all got the same core.
All of them are subjectivity manifesting in different forms.
Mm.
But we don't try and deal with all the different forms.
Mm.
Because once we understand that it actually is subjectivity, then the only solution is objectivity.
Yeah.
So objectivity is the solution to subjectivity.
Yes.
So, and what Swami Dayananda says, that objectivity is understanding that everything here is the presence of Ishvara.
Mm.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the point is that instead of struggling with ourselves, struggling with all the different forms of suffering that we think is in us, that we've got problems in ourselves,
yeah,
our real problem is we're not being objective. We are being subjective.
Yeah.
Now, the wonderful thing about that is that if any one moment I recognize, I'm being unhappy, now I know the direction to move, don't I?
Yeah.
I have to invite Ishvara into my life by being aware of him. Okay?
Yeah.
Now,
sorry, you go.
Go. No, go.
When you had said earlier about, needing to understand objectivity, needing to understand everything we're looking at is Ishvara. You're meaning, by understanding, you're meaning appreciating that as a fact. It's not just having an idea about it or a strong belief about it.
No. It's coming. The only thing that releases us from subjectivity is to become aware of the presence of God. Not having a notion of the presence of God, not having a religious belief that God exists, but right here, right now, as I am, I become aware of and conscious of the presence of God. Because it's the presence of God appreciated that lifts me out of the subjectivity.
And every form that we're looking at is the presence of
yes, whatever's here, yes.
Yeah.
But what's important here is that by becoming aware of the presence of God, I'm lifted out of my subjectivity. Now, it's not like, this is where it's different from having a religious thought about God. When I'm aware of the presence of God in the way that Swami Dayananda means it, I find myself relaxed in myself. I find myself at home with myself. And this I found extraordinary, because before Vedanta, I'd often try and I wanted to feel secure in myself, and I wanted to feel self-satisfied. But I was trying to find it in myself. Does that make sense? In my psychological processes.
You're thinking about, you're constantly struggling to think about how can you be happy in the world.
Yeah, I wanted a state of mind, if you like.
Yeah.
In which, yes.
And the mind is pondering on things like, what can I get to be happy?
No, it wasn't the mind pondering on it. I was pondering on it. Yes. Yeah. I was struggling with myself.
Yes.
Now, what Swami Dayananda says is a very interesting thing. It's only when you become, only by accepting Ishvara do you find yourself being acceptable? Profound psychological insight that the source of being able to appreciate yourself as acceptable to yourself is not to do with an internal process, but is actually to welcome into your life Ishvara in whatever form he's taking without any resistance.
Well, that's quite a statement.
It is. And what's important about this is that when we are in actual fact appreciating the presence of Ishvara, we find ourselves psychologically being secure and being at home with ourselves.
Yeah.
And then because we there's no psychological resistance, when there's no psychological resistance, our whole senses open up and we're alive to facts. We're living in the world as it is.
And not necessarily other ways of describing that, we find ourselves a conscious being and we're available to respond to what is in front of us.
That's exactly right.
Without any pressure or impetus or compulsion to do things.
There might be pressure there because we're learning how to live in this world, but yes, but essentially when we're relaxed in the lap of Ishvara, we are the suffering that makes all of the binding desires so very important is not there. Okay?
Yeah.
And so the first basis of being able to live in Ishvara's world is this new I feeling, if you like, in which I feel psychologically secure and at home with myself, which Swami Dayananda calls resting in the lap of Ishvara, or being relaxed in the lap of Ishvara. Okay?
Yeah.
So this is brought about by an understanding of what God is. Now, but this is only the beginning. This is just the beginning. Like this understanding coming into relationship with Ishvara by being aware of him is what puts us in the world as it is.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
As it is. Now, you know how I said to you that when we break it all down, what we're talking about here is learning to live a life. We're talking about an entirely different way of living that has an entirely different basis than the one we've had before. Okay, so when we're talking about Karma Yoga, we're talking about engaging in a way of living which is the freedom from subjectivity. A way of living which is freedom from subjectivity.
So in this sense, is this like what you're describing is that born of this appreciation of God, I find myself gratefully accepting whatever is given in the world, because I'm aware that that's a presence of God, whatever's given.
I may not like it, but I gracefully accept that fact too. Yes. Yeah.
And therefore, your whole attitude is one of receiving, accepting, as opposed to resisting. The normal one in subjectivity is resisting and rejecting attitude.
Interesting point. What Swami Dayananda says is the basis of reaction, and he means becoming the reaction. The basis of reaction is non-acceptance of a fact. When I am being accepting, not having an accepting attitude, but actually my being, I am being accepting. This acceptance, this being accepting, frees me from psychological reaction, which enables me to become alive to facts. If at the moment you will see that every form of suffering involves a sense of resistance, doesn't it? I hate this.
Yes.
When the I hate this is not there, we are transformed psychologically as an individual. Because we're no longer being a resistor, we are being a simple conscious presence related to the whole.
But it's the acceptance that which is born of the understanding of God that is a transformative factor, it seems.
Yes. The way Swami Dayananda puts it, the way you invite Ishvara into your life is by being aware of him. So the basis of this relaxation is not something that I do or something that I think. Okay?
Yep.
Now, remember what the last time I was talking, I want to look at all the elements of this. What does this way of living that frees us from, that is the freedom from subjectivity, which is the freedom from subjectivity, what is it composed of? Okay?
Yeah.
Now, so first of all, here we are being composed and relaxed in ourselves because we're filled up with the presence of God. Okay?
Yeah.
And because of that, we're relaxed in ourselves. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, but the purpose of life isn't just simply to be composed and relaxed. Swami Dayananda says the purpose of life is to live. Now, so becoming aware of the presence of Ishvara puts us into life as it is now. But we now have to also engage in action, don't we? To perform action.
Yeah.
Now, remember what I said to you that, when Sylvia asked me to go down to the shop to get some avocados to the IGA. So I'm walking down the road, right? But I'm caught up in imagining things, caught up in imagination. Have you ever been caught up in imagination?
I have been, Bede.
Yeah. Okay, you're obviously a sinner. Anyway, so you're caught up in imagination. And also, do you notice that you're just simply caught up in imagination, but also, are you performing action or is it just sort of happening all by itself in a funny way?
It sounds like you're describing where it's just happening by itself.
Yes, so you're not actually consciously performing action, are you?
No, I'm a sleepwalker.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the moment, so from this attitude of being relaxed in myself, from that attitude, I can perform action, can't I? Normally, we don't perform action.
No.
Okay? We think we do. So, the first part of Karma Yoga is me being a conscious doer, relaxed in the lap of Ishvara.
Yeah.
And now this is extraordinary, really. Because when you say, for example, you're doing the dishes, here you are, you have this, what Swami Dayananda calls inner relaxation. Now, because you have this inner relaxation, there's no resistance to facts, right? So there's no reaction. So you're alive to facts, and you're consciously doing the dishes. So what happens is that you as a thinker and you as a doer come together, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're consciously performing action. Okay, with this attitude.
Yeah.
And then when you're doing that, suddenly you notice, you slip away from the attitude. You're caught up in daydreams. And you come back into the attitude and you consciously perform the action. Okay?
Yeah.
This is incredible, really. Because this not only puts you in the world, but you're actually participating in the world from this attitude, and you're now performing the action consciously, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's not going on by itself.
No.
You are present while the action is occurring, as Swami Dayananda puts it. Okay?
Yeah.
But this is only the first part of the coin. Okay, so in actual fact, now in the real sense of the word, I am now living, aren't I?
Yes. Yeah.
In the real sense, you see, living is doing.
Because I think Swami Dayananda also says that often we're split between me as a doer and me as a thinker.
Yeah. He gave the example when you're eating food. And it's a very good thing to take as example. And the next time you're eating food, not to talk and just simply, which is hard for me, but anyway, but if you sit down and you just simply eat your food, you rest. Here you are. You're resting in the lap of Ishvara, and you're just simply eating your food. Okay, while being, and what you notice is that you are doing what you're doing while you're doing it, but you rest in the lap of Ishvara. So the action is being done from this attitude. They call it in formally speaking, they call it performance of action with proper attitude.
Swami Dayananda also says when there's this split between thinker and doer, you really can't enjoy anything.
That's what he says, yes. He says you're not, because you're not whole. You see, you'll notice, if you notice it, if you just take the example of when you're eating food. When you're eating food in this way, you actually appreciate yourself as being whole. Together as a person, as he puts it.
Yeah.
This is the basis of living. And the verb living means doing, doesn't it?
Yes.
So you are doing the action because you're there.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? And you're there with the action of eating, for example, or doing the dishes. Or you're going for a walk when you go for your morning walk. You're spending time living in Ishvara's world, and the actual walking becomes a form of worship, actually.
That's an interesting way of articulating it.
Okay, so we're now living in the world as it is, living in the world as it is. Okay.
Yeah.
And now, but the full kind of definition, if you like, is here I am being a conscious doer, relaxed in the lap of Ishvara, looking at and responding to everything in the light of Dharma. Now, this is the second part. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You see, graceful acceptance, or really being relaxed in the lap of Ishvara, is the absolute necessity that puts us in the world as it is. Okay?
Yeah.
But the world constantly requires a response from me, doesn't it?
The world is constantly in change, like the circumstances are changing.
Yes. And what happens is, the word duty means to give what's due. And the thing is that what Swami Dayananda says is that we have to strike harmony with the whole, because he considers if you're living in harmony with the whole, then you are harmonious.
Yeah.
You can't be harmonious without being in harmony with the whole. It's just not possible. That's why Western psychology fails. It tries to fix up the individual inside. But what he's talking about is that he says when we strike harmony with the whole. Okay? So, and the way we strike harmony with the whole, first of all, is to receive the presence of Ishvara into our life by being aware of him. By being aware of the presence of the given as it is given. Okay? But let's say, for example, you are walking down the road and you see a piece of rubbish on the road. Do you know what I mean? Or a bit of glass on the road, but you're in a hurry. And you look at it and you kind of know that really you should pick the rubbish up. So an idea comes to your mind. This piece of glass on the road needs to be picked up because someone might cut their foot.
Yeah.
But you know, you kind of walk, you sort of say, oh yeah, but you walk on past, and then suddenly you go, you know, really I should pick it. So what happens is you saw what was the situation.
Yeah.
And you had this knowledge of what would be the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But you want to go to the IGA and pick up the avocados.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But you go, wait a minute, right? Because if you continue walking, are you in harmony with the whole?
Well, when you don't do what you could see that you should have done, you'll feel a bit disturbed.
You get split.
Mm.
So what happens is what Swami Dayananda says is you as a knower, an understander of Dharma, because you see, Ishvara manifests in the human being in the form of Dharma, a knowledge of Dharma. Does that make sense? A knowledge of right and wrong. And you see, so here I am. I want to go to the shop to get the avocados, but I kind of know, and I've moved on from the glass. I've moved back 3, and I feel a bit niggly because I kind of know I need to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I feel kind of a bit disturbed. It's only a little thing.
Yeah.
But then what I do is I go back, I pick up the glass carefully, and I put it into some rubbish bin somewhere. Okay? And then there's a sense of wholeness. I do get a reward for this. Because to be in harmony with the whole, to do what Swami Dayananda calls do what needs to be done, this brings me into alignment with the order. I'm now working with the order, aren't I? You know what I mean? In terms of Dharma.
Yeah.
So this is what we mean by, you see, we don't just simply be aware. You know, this is the whole awareness kick now, you know, be aware. We're being aware in the light of Dharma.
What you're saying here is, if I'm not responding moment by moment to what's appropriate, I will be disturbed and I'll shift back into subjectivity, and I won't be available to be able to be responding to the world as it is.
That's exactly right. What happens is that when I'm split, I'm not together.
Yeah.
I'm not in harmony with the order. Now, what in Swami Dayananda's teaching, being in the harmony with the order involves 3 things. Okay? Now, because it's a lifestyle, I want you to imagine life as one moment at a time, coming one grain of sand through an hourglass. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So God gives us one moment at a time. Thank God for that. Okay, now I don't have to worry about the rest of it. You know how we can sometimes think, oh my God, my whole life is so stuffed up, I don't know what I can do about it, right?
Well, there's too many things to do, but in actual fact, at any one moment, there's only what's needed to be done.
We're only faced with one moment at a time, thank goodness.
Yeah.
We don't have to try and resolve all our life. It's not possible anyway.
But sometimes we can have that feeling that it's like that, but it's only in this subjectivity or
that's subjectivity.
Yes.
What happens is we're looking at our life and we go, oh my God, my life is so stuffed up. What can I do about it? I've got a picture of my mind about what I am like, and then I'm emotionally reacting to it. Now that is another form of subjectivity.
Yes.
What shifts me out of the subjectivity is here I am, right here, right now, relaxed in the lap of Ishvara. Okay, ready to go. Okay, now, but each moment is going to come to me. Now, I'm not going to try. This is the only moment that I can live. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is the only thing. Now, there are 3 components that Swami Dayananda brings about again and again and again of what does it mean to live a dharmic life? What does it mean? Yeah. We need to know what it means. Now, sometimes we can feel very smug. Well, I don't screw around on my wife. I don't drink. I don't steal. I don't, you know, I conform to the society. I'm a nice person. I live a life of Dharma. No, this is not living a life of Dharma in the way that Swami Dayananda means it. It is dharmic that the fact that you don't screw around on your wife and that you don't get drunk and you don't you know what I mean? Steal from people.
Yeah.
Dharmic actions. But living a life of Dharma is far different than just simply obeying external rules. Okay? So the first thing is this. We have a propensity, because of our human suffering, we have a tendency, don't we, to act in some ways that are harmful to ourselves or other people. Would you say that's true?
There can be that tendency active in people.
All the time. You see it all the time.
Yeah.
You ever see people arguing with each other?
I see it on a daily basis.
Yes. People constantly dramatize being harmful. Okay? To themselves, drinking too much or whatever, alcohol, whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? Not doing what they need to do that would help their lives. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Being harmful is a basic constituent of human life as normally lived. So what Swami Dayananda says, first thing, okay,
yeah,
is you're faced with this one little moment here. Don't harm.
Yeah.
He's not saying what to do. He said, don't harm. Now, if, for example, and this harming can be active, right? Where you actually maybe talk to someone in an unkind way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or it might be passive. I ignore the glass on the road. That might cut somebody. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't harm. Now, it's very easy to this is a very simple principle, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it is extremely difficult to live. That's true too.
Yes.
Because what it does is it measures me. I don't measure me. Dharma measures me. Okay?
Yeah.
Because I can sometimes feel very right speaking in a harsh way. I can feel right. Do you know that?
Yes.
But because it feels right, is it right?
No, but that's the experience that we feel. It relieves a hurt when we're hurting.
Yeah, well, whatever it does. But the thing is that it feels right. There's a pressure to harm because we're satisfying a desire by harming. That's the unfortunate thing.
Yes.
We don't like that fact, but that's the truth of it. The psychology of the Gita is that when you're looking at people's actions, you're looking at the satisfaction of desires. The action is a process of satisfying desires. Always. Whenever you're looking at people, they're always satisfying desires. That's a rule. So first of all, don't harm. Okay? So we've got this grain of sand, this one moment that's in front of us. First of all, don't harm.
So that's the first principle of Dharma.
That's the very first principle of Dharma. It is the highest virtue. In fact, Swami Dayananda says if you have this virtue, all the others come into play. But I won't go into that but that's true.
Yeah.
So the first thing is I don't harm. Now, this is going to put me in opposition to what I'm normally like, actually. Okay?
Yeah.
Because normally, first of all, I'm not really aware of what's happening, and I'm either neglectful, I don't do exactly what would need to be done, or I'm doing what is harmful.
You're driven by binding desires, which sometimes make you do things that you shouldn't do,
There's a pressure to make you do what you shouldn't do. Yeah, a pressure, but you are the one who does it.
Yeah.
Okay, we can't get away with. We can't get away with consequences. But so first of all, don't harm. Now the second one, and this is vitally important. Our whole psychology is based about me, around me. What I want, what I hope, what I wish for.
Yeah.
And what happens is our whole psychology is based on the fact that here's this big world here, and what this world does, it either gives me what I want or it takes it away from me.
That's the normal perception and subjectivity. Yeah.
Yeah. Gimme, 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 gimme.
Yeah.
The world is going to make me happy. It's going to give me something, and I try and get it what it's going to give me.
Yeah.
Now, what Swami Dayananda says is that we're born and we're consumers. He says now that what's important is there must be a shift from being a consumer to a contributor. To a contributor.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, you see, when you're looking at a life of Karma Yoga, which is a religious life in the true sense of the word, first of all, you've always got the presence of God in the form of a fact to be gracefully accepted, but you've also got the presence of God in the form of a duty to be done.
Yeah.
So what happens is life becomes an offering, what the Indians mean by worship. So what happens is, when I stop and I pick up that glass, I'm offering something, aren't I? I'm bringing a value, aren't I?
Yes.
Into the world. I'm contributing. But it's not like I should pick up the glass because it's not nice.
No.
It's actually engaging in wholehearted living. It's being related to Ishvara in a wholehearted way. It involves every aspect of me. And it becomes an offering, but it becomes a form in which I relate to Ishvara. Does that make sense? My whole living becomes a form in which I relate to Ishvara.
Yeah.
Okay? So I first of all don't harm, and I bring the exact action that's needed. I bring the value that's needed to that specific situation.
Which is beneficial, like it's...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what makes it valuable.
Yes.
So I'm contributing in a beneficial way. I'm bringing value.
Yes.
Does that make sense? I'm being a contributor, which frees me from this being a consumer.
Yeah.
Okay?
A wanter.
A wanter, yeah. Okay? Now, so we've got don't harm. Okay? And we've got bringing the value that's needed. Okay?
Yeah.
There's another one. You see, have you ever heard people say, I just want to do my own thing?
Yeah, I hear that.
The thing is that we live life with other people, don't we? And so what we want, what he says is that we don't want to disturb, unnecessarily disturb. Okay? It's like we're not harming. We don't want to unnecessary harming. Okay?
Yeah.
So what happens is that sometimes we can talk too gruffly or we're not sensitive to the situation. See, what we're talking about is being very sensitive to the situation and what's needed, and perform the action in such a way that we don't disturb the environment, we don't disturb other people. And then we're living in harmony with the order, aren't we?
Yes.
You see, if I act harmfully, if I don't bring the value, because even that is disturbance. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And if I don't do it in such a way that so I don't disturb people, I go out of sync with the order, don't I? Now that going out of sync with the order means disturbance in me. You see, the brilliance of Swami Dayananda is that when you live rightly with the order, you feel right in yourself. So the source of being right in yourself is being non-harmful, beneficially contributive, and don't be disturbing. It's exceptional, really, because this way of living is the psychological transformation that we're all seeking. See, sometimes people think, oh, to be psychologically transformed is one day in the future I'm going to get something. That's just nonsense.
Is that sort of, you call that spiritual or religious idealism?
Yes. We one day in the future. What Swami Dayananda talks about is that given that you have the wisdom, the understanding, for example, you cannot live a dharmic life unless you know what Dharma is, which we've now just talked about what Dharma is. What does it mean to live a life of Dharma?
Yeah.
You can't live a life of Dharma unless you know what it means. So what Swami Dayananda says, you have to have the wisdom first, then you have to live the wisdom. And you have to, but you're not going to be willing to live the wisdom unless you see the value of it, eh?
No.
Now, there is no possibility that you can live a fulfilling and happy life if you are not in harmony with the order.
I think that's true.
It's just ridiculous. It's not possible.
No.
One of the worst things that happen in Western psychology, they split ethics from the relationship between living an ethical life and the quality of our minds. Because it's now like, well, there's no such thing as right and wrong, and you find your own self, and blah blah blah. Okay. Now there's a very interesting point here. Once we really understand what it means to live a life of Dharma, what's important here isn't really so much, in one sense, it's important to live a life of Dharma. But this enables us to see when we're not living a life of Dharma. It opens up our cognition so we actually see, oh, I'm being harmful here.
We have a reference, whereas previously we don't have any reference of what we should be doing.
No, we've got our references ourselves, yes. What I want, my feelings, what I wish for. What feels good to do.
Whether my wants are being satisfied or not.
Yeah, they're our reference point.
Is whether I think the world is a good place or a bad place.
Yes. And
often I might think the world sucks or something like that.
Yes.
But this is all completely subjectivity.
This is our reference point is ourself. And because of that, you see, only through living a life of Karma Yoga and Dharma are we lifted out of a way of life based around subjectivity. It's what Swami Dayananda calls living objectively. But it's not easy. This practice of Karma Yoga, this commitment to living a life of Dharma and living a life of Karma Yoga, right? In other words, a commitment to being relaxed in the lap of Ishvara while I consciously perform action and looking at everything in the light of Dharma and responding to that, to things in the light of Dharma, which is this lifestyle, is not easy. It's simple, but not easy. But this isn't to be used to start to feel guilty, actually. You see, what Swami Dayananda is talking about is that we have to learn to live a life of Karma Yoga and Dharma. Learn.
So we don't want any self-criticism or self-condemnation.
No, it's not like an external moral code. It's more like, okay, I see the value of living in harmony with the order, with Ishvara. I see that the source of my happiness, real happiness and genuine meaning for my life, means that I have to learn to live in an entirely different way than the way I've been living. Okay? So given that I see the value. Now, this is what he means when he talks about that. Well, I mentioned it last week about the cook. Here's this person. He was a cook, but he wanted to learn singing.
Yeah.
And he started to sing. La da 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 do re mi do re mi. You know, like, I'm not going to abuse the viewers by singing, but he starts to sing and he starts to learn how to sing.
Yes.
And eventually he becomes a professional singer. And then he goes back to the restaurant and he's cooking because he wanted to do it. And a client said to the restaurateur, isn't that the guy that used to work? Isn't that cook? Is that cook the famous singer? He said, no. He says that's a famous singer who's cooking. So it's a question of we're learning to become a devotee who is living. You see, what we're learning to do with Karma Yoga is to learn how to engage in the process of living in the right way. Okay?
Because Swami Dayananda says when we're not living in this way, he refers to as the word a slumberless.
No, somnambulist. He says that we're like a sleepwalker. You see, there is no possible, and you see now this whole question in the Bhagavad Gita, right? There's a whole question of what does it mean? Like there's two things in the Bhagavad Gita: self-mastery and self-knowledge. Now, without self-mastery, there is no self-knowledge. Get this. Without self-knowledge, without self-mastery, self-knowledge is not attainable to us.
No.
Now, but it's not like, well, one day I'm going to gain self-mastery. If right here, right now, as I am, I'm resting in the lap of Ishvara, I'm performing the action consciously, and I'm performing the action in the light of Dharma. In other words, I'm not being harmful, I'm contributing the value that's needed and being non-disturbing. I am now exercising self-mastery.
And self-mastery can also be phrased as living a life of Karma Yoga in accordance with Dharma.
Yeah. Well, Karma Yoga actually comprises of two aspects: Dharma and graceful acceptance. Okay, because he says that Karma Yoga is the attitude. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like the whole point is to be able to remain the same. So irrespective of what is happening, I remain in the lap of Ishvara, consciously performing actions, and no matter what people do to me, I respond in the light of Dharma. I remain the same. I am determining how I'm living. The environment or what is happening does not determine my way of life. My way of life is being determined by my relationship with Ishvara in the form of graceful acceptance and beneficial contribution, non-harmfulness. Yeah.
And that's because when you are in the lap of Ishvara, you're already, you're not going to be seeking happiness outside because you're already relatively.
You might still have the pressure, but you're coming home and it's a growth. Does that make sense? You see, when we first start this, we might only have a sense of relaxation, but it's not very deep. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's not like we're learning to live in the lap of Ishvara. We're learning to do our actions from this attitude, and also to respond in the light of Dharma. Now, this is the only thing. This way of living is the only vehicle which transforms us psychologically. Every other thing is a red herring. And it's commitment to this living. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
That frees us from our psychological misery, if you like.
So this needs to become our standard, doesn't it?
Well, this is our way of living, yes. Yeah. Swami Dayananda makes it quite clear that every time you do not do what you need to do, you become weaker. You feel you become, there's no inner strength. You become weaker and weaker. Every time you conform your actions to Dharma, you know what I mean? Where you consciously conform your actions to what you know to be right, you become stronger. It has a psychological effect. So our actions, how we live, has a tremendous impact on the quality of our mind. It is impossible to improve the quality of our mind without living a life of Karma Yoga and Dharma. And this is why, you know, you can say as much as you like, well, I'm the self and I'm consciousness and all that stuff. If you have not, you will not be able to appreciate yourself as consciousness without the foundation of this, without self-mastery. And the whole point with self-mastery is it is not one day I'm going to become self-mastered. I'm going to achieve something here. Self-mastery is a way of living that you can practice. And by God, you better practice it.
Because the alternative is being a sleepwalker.
But not only that, you'll be continually building into yourself disturbance. You will lose access to your free will. You won't have any inner strength. You'll just be chucked around by circumstances. The only things that frees us from the life of suffering and subjectivity is an entirely different way of living, which is based on our contact with reality. And this is why it is so important. And this is what I wanted to talk about today. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, Kevin.
All right. Thank you, Bede.
See ya.
All right.